have an impact. If you play well and things slightly go right for you, then yeah, you're making that impact, you're making those choices to help sort of progress you forward and get where you want to be. Whereas some of the other players, because they've been knocked out now, they just have to sit and see, kind of just where everything falls at the end of the day to see where they're going to end up. But looks like the players are ready, Sottle, and we are diving into the first game of this match. Thijs on the top on that warrior and AyRoK on the mage, starting things off with a full mulligan for AyRoK. But Thijs, on the other hand, does have a few considerations here because he does have some pretty powerful early game cards.
I'm also very curious to see what kind of emotional range we're going to get from AyRoK today, because I figured it out. I think what he's doing is putting together his headshot portfolio for like a big audition, because there was the big like emotional breakdown almost. That was like his emotional period drama headshot, right? There was the hands out like wow reaction to the Alexstrasza, which was like his family sitcom headshot, right? So
or his own Wilson impressionist, I don't know.
Right, yeah, exactly. But I think he's just trying to fill out that portfolio so he can really start nailing down some of those big roles.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for action hero pose from AyRoK. That's one I will look forward to. But diving into the game already, Thijs has just got a ton of options here. Obviously, having that athletic studies is a big deal nice and early. But this is a play I really like. I think I've spoken to you a lot about this, of just getting Parade Leader to just sit on the board is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I love it, especially with the way the rest of the curve plays out here. Just present threatening minions on every possible turn here if you're Thijs, and just hope that it gets there, because weirdly, as time goes on, the matchup starts to become more and more mage-favored, I would say, and your job is to be as aggressive as you can, as early as you can from the warrior side of things, because, typically we view warrior as a very resilient class, but this is not a very resilient deck, which means if AyRoK is given enough time to assemble the burn, he will be able to burn Thijs out of this one.
Really big pickup there of the lab partner from that studies, because it allowed him to kill off the Parade Leader, because yes, the minions that are played after the fact aren't rushing into anything at the moment, but it's just a permanent attack buff, right? It's just insane. So
yes,
the fact he could clean that off might actually make him feel a little bit more comfortable about going for this deck of Lunacy, because he might well have played it no matter what the situation looks like, but if you can clear off a threatening minion like that, it definitely helps with the decision.
Yeah, it's huge. I think, it's obviously still incredibly powerful playing deck of Lunacy, but the skipped turn is so much more punishing on turn 4 than it is on turn 2. To the point that we still see now so many players like playing Encounters Flow on 2 and playing Deck of Lunacy on 4, because that means if they were to hold the Encounters Flow and play it after the Deck of Lunacy, even though that is just kind of objectively better in most matchups, you'd be skipping turn 4 to play Deck of Lunacy, and you'd then arguably be skipping turn 5 also to play the Encounters Flow, right? Instead of playing something powerful from your deck.
And also, you'd be sat with 2 cards that you aren't going to play for the first 4 to 5 turns of the game. So that's it. You even sort of given a nod to almost skipping a few turns earlier than that as well. But now, Thijs is piling on that pressure, and once again, it's just the playmaker sat on board, and the big question, can AyRoK kill it? Because if not, it's the same kind of issue as Parade Leader, that even if there's nothing to rush into, it just makes more stuff. But we were talking about whether AyRoK wants to mimic Boston from their first series with the flow. Well, he's definitely not mimicking him with the level of card draw he's just got access to. Skull of Gul'dan.
I mean, we will absolutely take it.
Yeah.
Weapon swing, ping down the 4-1. Still has Ice Barrier for a little bit of long-term protection.
I know because you didn't cast me in the first series, so I know you've missed this, but crazy suggestion time. Does he just fireball one of these minions?
I think because he has the Ice Barrier, he doesn't need to, but like, it's not a dumb enough suggestion that I'm going to ridicule you for it. Wow, okay.
Yeah. It's because you would imagine now, like, with Lunacy, the longer the game goes on, the better, right, for AyRoK.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Draw more cards, so why take another 3 damage? Well, another 6, I guess, with the weapon. Pretty scary.
I do feel like having a guaranteed burn spell or 2 is very powerful, though, right? Because you don't have any guaranteed burn in your deck. You don't really have any guaranteed way to make minions in your deck sometimes. Like, you are very much flying by the seat of your pants when you play Deck of Lunacy. But I think it was, I guess, close would be one way of putting it. I still stick by what I said, like because he has Ice Barrier in hand, I think he's relatively secure to just leave up a 3-1, especially when he still has a weapon and a ping, right, to be able to deal with multiple sources of 1 health on the following turn to clear that up. But like I said, I don't hate fireballing the minion.
I was taking his time over this decision, and honestly, I'm even looking at Warsong Outrider here because maybe Broom can't be good enough. Yeah, he's gone for it, okay. I'm trying to work out what's in Thijs' mind, which is difficult, right? Because when you're playing against Lunacy, you've got to think, well, do I need something that beats AoE? Do I need something that beats minion generation? Well, kind of yes to every question, because they can do all of those things or none of them.
Yikes. Okay.
Not too bad.
Rapidly improved, yeah.
Yeah. And now the Ice Barrier, as you mentioned earlier, will give AyRoK, that bit more wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, if AyRoK could get a beast, I mean, could look pretty good with Dire Frenzy Guardian Animals combo.
Yeah,
that's
literally
actually pretty sick.
The first beast he ever sees is just enormous at that point.
And he can insta-draw them. Oh, so good.
Oh yeah, there's Guardian Animals to go with that as well. I didn't even consider that. Yeah, if they cost...
Yeah, if they're 5 or less.
Shuffle them all in your deck, buff them all up under the fist, and Guardian Animals them up. For the low price of 2 whole turns of Hearthstone where you're going to die. Yeah, seems good.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Also now, double Corrupted Ring Toss and the Shadow Word Rune, which I think is a big deal here, because now you're getting to the point, what are you scared of against this warrior? And it is cards such as Troublemaker, even anything just big and bulky in general, especially with the conditioning buffs. A lot of the even like lower cards get up to the point where they will get killed off by the Shadow Word.
This is a ton of damage being presented by ETC, though.
Yeah, suddenly Broom is just good for just 2 damage as well, right? Like,
yeah, suddenly this is just very reminiscent of ETC OTK Warrior, right? Whereas just the Broom is representing so much additional damage because it's another rush minion itself, plus giving the ETC itself rush, so on and so forth. And I think getting this little bit of chip damage through here and there is very powerful because it then sets up for Troublemaker to potentially push a little bit more. And then, anytime Alexstrasza or Watley into Alexstrasza comes out the deck, you could just have straight up lethal.
yeah, this is just good, isn't it? Is he going to trade in the ETC? Yep, okay. Going to bank the damage and forgo some of the health on that ETC.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, only 1 minion's at 5 or more, so...
It is the Rakara, though, which is kind of ideal. Mm-hmm. It is frozen, though, which is kind of not ideal. And this is the fear, right? Like, when you throw a 0-mana fireball at a 3-1, it's not just burning out face that you're giving up at that point. It's also 0-mana fireballing a 4-6 instead of a 3-1 later in the game, right? Now he has to spend 4 mana to fireball that 4-6 instead. So I think, potentially by trying to save health with a 3-1, he's end up costing himself health over the course of the game.
It's super difficult though, right? Because then his turns after that would have been mana for ping or something else to kill the 3-1, or that would have definitely dealt more than 6 anyway.
Well, again, he did still have the weapon, right? So he could have just potentially taken another 3 damage and just face tanked it, which, I guess you could engineer that to say he'd be at 4 this turn, which is kind of terrifying. Right. But it's definitely worth looking at.
Oh, it's definitely not a clear decision, is it? I don't think it's just a clear-cut one.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of interesting, right? Because the fact that the minions left up now are frozen, so they can't gain attack, means that ETC still flies under the radar of the Shadow Word next turn.
Yes. He also did not take Ice Barrier here, by the way. He has Mirror Entity and Oasis Ally, which does put him in actually a pretty reasonable spot, it's worth saying, against Troublemaker. But it does mean that Troublemaker is then, what, 75% lethal at that point if it comes down?
Oh,
Wait, really? Hang on.
If I was Thijs, I would have slammed this Troublemaker, because even if it's Entity, like you said, 1, you might just win anyway. 2, well, look at your board. It's still good, even if he gets 1, right? Like most of your minions survive an attack from a 3/3 anyway. Like, what AoE really punishes the whole board and does the deal with AyRoK? I'm really surprised at this.
Thijs clearly confused, but I don't know if he just didn't recognize. Like, he attacked first with the broom, right? So he already knew it was an Ice Barrier. To me, it kind of feels like he played that rest of the turn as if he hadn't ruled out Ice Barrier, but with the way it ends up, he just gets lethal with the run pack anyway. Looks super confused. Like, that whole interaction from both sides is extremely confusing. I guess, like, Thijs says there, by going with the draw for the rush minion, if it's going to be Mirror Entity with the Troublemaker anyway, he can play around that by drawing a rush minion, playing a rush minion, and then trading into the Mirror Entity. But the difference then is, like, what happens if it wasn't Counterspell? Or what happens
if it was
Mirror Entity, if it was Counterspell, if it was Netherwind Portal or something, then he ends up, quote, missing lethal with the Troublemaker.
Right.
But it's kind of an interesting spot either way. Gia just confirming for me, Gia's still carrying the broadcast, even in Discord, that Ice Barrier actually just straight up wasn't one of the options from the ring toss, which I didn't notice, which does change the dynamic a lot. But still, super interesting turn at the end there for Thijs.
Yeah, because if, like... Hang on, let me think. Yeah, because it wouldn't have worked, right? So if it was exactly Counterspell Netherwind, the Counterspell procs, and then he can't actually proc the Netherwind to put the Blademaster in, which would have been lethal if there was something to Blademaster into.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if it was a combination of those two secrets, it would have been an issue. I do understand not wanting to play a Troublemaker into a potential Mirror Entity, but for me, even if the game goes on another turn or so, like, I don't know what cards actually deal with that are even realistic for AyRoK to have. But yeah, regardless of the sort of wild ending to that game, it is over. Thijs takes the victory, of course, and AyRoK is going to switch over to his Rogue for game number 2.
Yeah, and this is another standard build of Miracle Rogue, I would say, with the double Orc Merchant, double Neophyte, Vanessa Van Cleef, which I would say is the standard build these days. We did just see Viper's series where he'd cut the Neophytes for 2 Wand Makers instead. But I think this is more what we're used to seeing, and I think AyRoK has been reasonable with the deck. But actually, on the other side, there's a player in this series who has an incredibly good record with Miracle Rogue, and it's actually Thijs, who has a 64% record with the deck overall. But honestly, I think AyRoK feels more at home playing proactive decks. It's just kind of how I've characterized him based on his run through the Masters Tour and his Grandmasters play, which is largely the amount of experience from him. But he does seem to be an aggro player, a proactive player, a tempo player. So I do tend to peg him as enjoying these more aggressive decks. We don't really have that much outright aggro in the game right now, but Mage, Rogue, Rush Warrior, generally decks that try and get on board and do things relatively quickly.
And it's one thing that's really convenient, I guess, with the Spell Mage and Miracle Rogue, right now, is I feel like there's very general little room for changing cards, right? I think generally, unless you're building for something hyper-specific, the player base has agreed on what the good versions of those decks are. Right, just as we're about to get, some more cards injected into the set, and that mixes everything up again. So it feels like the timing is almost perfect, because it's even only recently that the Neophytes really came into Rogue a few weeks ago, and then once that's just been decided, okay, everyone's running this style of Miracle Rogue, it's like, well, maybe things get thrown out the window again in a X amount of time, or shortly anyway. So it's going to be pretty cool to see how things get shaken up. But let's just talk about the Rogue hand, because the Mage one just doesn't matter.
Yep. Yeah, it's standard stuff over in Thijs' hand. Okay, that's funny. All right, straight face. Standard stuff over in Thijs' hand, whereas on AyRoK's side, a relatively solid opening. He does have field contact and swindle, which means he will be able to burn through resources very, very quickly. But this is absolutely not what AyRoK is going to want to be seeing on the other hand. And now he has to cross his fingers and pray for one of those Boston draws that we saw just now in the previous series.
And this is the moment, right? That's the worst possible thing you could see from AyRoK's point, right? But he knows what's on the line.
He did not want to have.
He knows what's on the line here, and as long as he just goes, okay, that sucks, refocus. You know what I mean? Like, he can't, as long as he doesn't lose it, because it is, if there's ever something to push you over the edge, it's an opening like that.
Yes, and if you are just joining the series, again, a reminder of the stakes, which is that AyRoK needs to win not only this series, but also his next series, potential series tomorrow, to even be avoiding relegation, to even get a spot in Grandmasters in the following season in 2021. He played a series last week where he basically said an emotional goodbye to the stream, thinking that his chances were potentially over already. He's done everything he needed to do to get back to this point where he's now 2 wins away from guaranteed survival, but he is being faced with the absolute nuts draw on the other side from Thijs on the mage.
And here for Thijs, I actually like him just playing this ring toss, try and go for a Netherwind, maybe even a counterspell would be fine, just something to disrupt AyRoK's turn, because the next few turns, like, he's probably going to have Combustion Target next turn, then he probably will want to Apexis Blast, by then he's already drawn some more cards and so on. He's going to hold off though and just go for the ping.
Too quiet.
All right, let's go. Goes 1 Thief first. This gives him the option of hitting the Foxy Fraud off the top, so he can then go Foxy Swindle and essentially cheat out some mana, get more draws, more tempo that way. Doesn't hit it, so now I'm sure we're going to see the Swindle. Now he's looking almost exclusively for Shadow Step for additional draws. All right, there's some good cards to have picked up. He has a very strong curve now, at least, with like Cult Neophyte something into Jandis from this point.
Yeah, he got the other style of draw that you're looking for, right? If you're not going to do the big pop-off draw turn, then you probably want just the good cards in your deck. And he is sitting on that second field contact, so whenever he feels like, he can go for kind of the hard card draw rotation again. But now... So the last card played was the Phoenix.
That's right.
I'm just wondering if there's like just double Neophyte this turn. And make Thijs pay a real amount of mana for his cards.
Yeah, we can see that Neophyte here would block the Apexis Blast, which is probably the scariest thing to happen to AyRoK on this turn. But if he goes double Neophyte, then there's only really like one card that could possibly then be Apexis Blast that would interact with, right? Because all of the cards apart from one that Thijs has been drawing have been double discounted. So it might even just be like Cult Neophyte once with field contact instead, which I think is fairly reasonable this turn. Yeah, I quite like this. It creates a spell taunt minion on the board, right? So if Apexis Blast is going to come down, it essentially AyRoK heals for 5 because it has to be shot at the field contact in most reasonable situations.
Yeah, I think with the double, of course, the consideration is Apexis Blast at all times. But I was even thinking of, is throwing away, well, pretty much throwing away a field contact for the one draw, worth just actually changing it up, going for Cult Neophyte ×2, to then say, well, regardless of Apexis Blast, you can't really do anything else either, because with 5 mana and the double reduction, or even single reduction, there's still a decent amount of things that Thijs can do.
Yeah. I think it's okay, though, because he has exactly double passage in hand, so I don't think he's going to be too caught up for card draw this game. And that's actually a pretty big win. AyRoK nods. He's certainly not going to be happy about anything that's happening this game, but I think that is about as close as it gets. And if I were AyRoK, I would be very interested in adding the card Fireball to my hand this turn.
Yes. Or what about
possibly twice?
No,
yeah.
Yeah. I think there is a discussion you could have over Shadow Stepping and Neophyte, though.
I think it is Neophyte.
Yeah. So, I mean, Fireballs are just fun, aren't they? But I think Neophytes get the job done a little bit better.
Oh, I think this is greedy. I think stepping the Neophyte might even just get you more damage on average as well, right? Because it makes you better at sticking a board on the following turn. It's really close.
But he is running up to 8 mana, right? So he can just like Jandis next turn, then go for double Fireball turn after.
I don't think that's going to end the game, though.
Then you just don't believe in Jandis.
It's just that cost that AyRoK has. You're just having to pay full cost for these fireballs, where Thijs can just do so many more explosive things.
But what about Jandis Brain Freeze if there's something to hit, obviously, yeah? Double Fireball Alex. Do you not think that is likely to end the game?
No. I think you'll die if Thijs decides to race you in that position.
Thijs did just Fireball him earlier, though. Fireball a minion.
Okay. Drop the Brain Freeze on the 2-3. Thijs has done a very good job holding on to this Devolving Missiles here. He also held on to a Firebrand on the previous turn, which honestly looked pretty appealing, but Thijs just went straight in and ripped the mask instead, and now there's double Devolving Missiles. Okay, this was still potentially going to leave a decent amount of power in play after the fact, but with the ring toss not looking like it's going to be the case. Needs the Firebrand to miss the Ogre, which I'm assuming has the illusion on it here. It does not.
It did, right? The Ogre did have the illusion.
Yes, no, but the Firebrand did not miss it.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said the illusion, which it didn't. I was like, well, it just died.
Yeah.
I was confused. Okay, well, Kazakas could change up AyRoK's plan here, especially considering he is now... Well, with the original plan, he'll be trying to play a Fireball into 2 secrets, which doesn't seem optimal.
Yep.
Care to make a wager, friend?
This is the scary part right now. These 2 Fireballs in hand are starting to look a little bit silly. He's going to have to draw out the game now, I think, past the point where he can play Alexstrasza first to set up double Fireball, potentially. And I think that's a tough position to work yourself in from this point.
I mean, there are still Wicked Stabs left in the deck, right? He hasn't played any, and it might be the case that it's actually potentially like a defensive Alexstrasza in between, like the burn cards, maybe, just to buy him that 1 extra turn. It's tough.
I have actually won more games as Rogue against Mage than you might think possible by fatiguing them and then just, going defensive Alexstrasza at the end of the game to outlast all of their damage. It's happened, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times to me over the course of playing this matchup. But I think that's much, much more difficult to do when they're playing double flow.
Rigged Fair Game going to come out here. And Rigged Fair Game with double discount. That's a tough one. So now Thijs has the option of just completely going off with Devolving Missiles and just pushing mask damage through here. Then he'll have a Pexis Blast Fireball for the turn after.
Yeah, that looks pretty great to me. Honestly, all of these options look pretty great to me. Really? Straight up drops the mask. Okay. Play for minions instead.
Does mean he retains Devolvings for the Golems that come out, right? If he needs to play the longer game.
Golem is lifesteal deal 3, so alongside the prize plunderer, he can clear up a good amount of this. Nice. Very unhappy to see that, though. His decision to be rather frivolous with 2 masks this game may just be coming back to bite him. Oh, with
Did
2
you mean the masks? Okay.
I do mean the masks, yeah. He's used 2 and not used Devolvings, therefore not pushing as much damage to face as he could have done.
Ooh.
Oh boy, I want to Temu this Golem so bad.
That's what I was looking at, but then I thought you'd shower me because it couldn't be played again.
Yeah. Brutal, right?
Well, there's all the card draw in the world, really, for Thijs this game, but... I Like you said, there are ways, and again, with the defensive Alex as potential for AyRoK, like, he can heal for a lot this game, and already has healed for a significant chunk.
That's right. Okay.
It's all traded in now. Or are you going to value the damage to face?
Unless you want to, like, rip the other missiles, but you probably don't.
I mean, you could just go face and brain freeze it, right?
Yep. Also fine. I think the damage to face is honestly pretty good here, especially as I mentioned, he's a little bit short on damage because of those masks hitting a lot of minions.
Good finish on Trick Totem to get a third flow.
True. Would only gain him 11 mana at this late point in the game.
Oh, not worth.
Yeah. Actually wouldn't, because so many of those cards actually cost 0 already, right? But who needs facts and accuracy?
No one when the Neophytes are gone. But if the Neophytes weren't gone, we could talk. Is this another secret passage turn here for AyRoK?
Yeah, there's the deck. It's not looking pretty.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is like secret passage into exactly like double Wicked Stab and then whatever, like maybe Mancrick or something, you know, to just try and like front load as much damage as possible.
Yeah, and in a unique twist for our Grandmasters deck tracker, those 2 Wicked Stabs are actually both there.
Yeah. It's good that we spent so many years just being at least decent at memorizing what's been played and not.
Yeah.
We are pretty good at it normally. Don't ask me to count bombs though.
Oh yeah. Sets himself up as an out, so now with 8 cards left remaining next turn, he's able to go Secret Passage into double Wicked Stab to win the game. Probably his, honestly, now that I look at it, that is probably the best win condition here. Yeah. Obviously the threat of counter lethal is extremely real on the other side, but it gives him a shot. I kind of respect it.
17, 18 with ping, or can I not count?
Ooh! No, you can count.
It is 18 with the spell damage and ping, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Attacks for 7, down to 9. Fireball ping is 8 more. He can combust his own Blood Mage to look for lethal. One Apexis, 1 Ruined Orb left remaining in the deck here for Thijs. Arcane Intellect, 3 mana Apexis Blast!
Wow.
Oh.
Really, really close game there, because you can see straight away AyRoK with what? He'll have drawn a card, goes to 8, then he can Secret Passage for the 2 Wicked Stabs, and he might draw a Wicked Stab naturally as well. Like, oh, that was so close, and Thijs had to really go digging there to get that out, and it was well played from both players, and Thijs just having the knowledge, of course, that he has the opportunity to go, okay, spell damage gets me to 18, Thanos, perfect, kill it, go. And yeah, just, I don't know, that game was just really well played and actually very, very close.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to go that far with the way Thijs played it, because I think he put himself in a potentially sticky spot by being very greedy with his devolving missiles. He had to find a way to, you know, find all of the damage remaining in his deck where it looked like he was getting there very, very comfortably. Obviously, that was accounting for a big lifesteal golem that, you know, isn't necessarily a part of the game. But I think you saw Thijs' reaction when that came down, like, actually, I guess I really didn't consider lifesteal golem that hard. But, you know, Thijs being Thijs was still able to recover, re-navigate, find himself back into a good position. And I think that last turn in particular, he handled his outs very nicely. But speaking of handling his outs very nicely, this setup from AyRoK to go for the double Wicked Stab on the following turn. It's very nicely engineered.
I'll slightly alter my statement. The ending of the game was played very well by both players. Is where we'll sit at, I guess, for this one. But AyRoK now is really in trouble. He is 2-0 down, and he has all the work in the world to do. And even if somehow he gets through this, he's got to do it all again tomorrow as well. So, it's got to feel rough now. He's got to beat Rogue 3 times with Mage, Rogue, Paladin. It's a big ask, isn't it?
And we set it up earlier, Thijs has not made a habit of losing 3 times in a row with Miracle Rogue. In fact, out of 3 games of Miracle Rogue, he tends to win 2 of them with a close to 2/3 win rate, 63.6% overall with Miracle Rogues. This has been one of his most successful decks of the season. There it is. He has gone 14-8 with it in total, which means that AyRoK has an uphill climb, and at the top of that uphill climb is a further uphill climb, because this is just never going to stop from AyRoK. He's going to lead out with the Libram Paladin, which honestly is an okay matchup against Rogue, but not a great one. It's kind of the story of Rogue matchups. You can kind of say that about most of them. You know, either Rogue is slightly favored or slightly unfavored. There are very few matchups where Rogue is favored by miles or unfavored by miles, but still, to win 3 of them, particularly in the level of emotional duress that AyRoK is under, is going to be a Herculean task.
It really is, like you said. Rogue right now is one of those weird decks that just is good enough to be played. Obviously, we've seen it from the majority of Grandmasters week in, week out, but it's good enough because it's average, if that makes sense, which is a weird thing to say, but it's just, its actual just spread is just decent against everything. So yeah, we'll see how it pays off for him there. But most importantly, he's going to dive on this Paladin versus the Mage. And this, what do you make of this matchup here? Wait, Paladin versus the Rogue Mage. Look. I'm okay. I'm recovering.
Deep breaths. Yeah, no. But, like, I think if this game stabilizes and goes long and, like, hits the late game, I think Paladin can generally take over, because there's very little opportunity for Rogue to set up a big burst win condition in the late game, which is generally the only late game tool that they have. Right. The problem is just how fast and efficient they can be if they do get the Octobot proc down early. Proctobot? I don't know, choose one. If they're able to get it down early, that's a huge, huge deal, and it takes a lot to stop that from happening. Generally, it's like Aldor Attendant on 1 into Hand of Adal, coin 1 mana Libram of Wisdom, right? Like, that has to be the opening to deny turn 2 Octobot, and there's nothing of that sort in AyRoK's hand right now, which means that this is absolutely going to go off. And when it goes off, I think Rogue is just too efficient in the early game, and they run away with the game quite early more often than not.
Yeah, I think the second best answer to that ultimate scenario for Paladin you mentioned is just having Sword of the Fallen, because whether it's Oh My Yogg, whether it's the Galloping as well, can help you at least keep up with the Rogue and make them consider the plays here. But without Sword of the Fallen to kind of give that secret buffer for AyRoK, he is going to fall behind pretty quickly right now.
So now I think the way you play as Paladin is just to try and exhaust the Rogue. You just try and run them out of resources as much as possible and just hope that there's no big field contact or secret passage refill in hand, which is very quickly, you can kind of see it developing, right? Like, what other out does AyRoK have at this point?
Yeah, he just needs to get some trades done. I do like the pickup of Font of Power for Thijs. It means he can just to help sort of bridge the gap before he gets to that card draw. Oh, yep. Brain freeze, though, is insane.
It's 3 of the worst mage minions I've ever seen in my life. Like, I don't think you want to take Trick Totem when you're this far ahead. That seems like nonsense. But the other 2 cards do literally nothing. I honestly, just understated.
Yeah, I honestly think for this, like, Occult Conjurer is just a 4-cost on 4, right? Like, just play it out as a minion because he hasn't got the card draw yet. He doesn't have anything else to do. Just have a 4/4 to play on 4. It's fine versus Paladin. I'm with you. I think actually Trick Totem is just way too risky, right? It's going to go for Luminary.
Care to make a wager, friend? Too soon.
May the light.
I have an ointment coming down here for AyRoK Reckoning. Not bad. I think this might just be like a double secret turn, even though it's very inefficient. Just get the secrets down and start making Thijs deal with them.
Yeah, I kind of agree, honestly. I don't think the Libram does that much here.
I guess
the Libram changes the trade from a 1-2 value trade to a 2-1 having to trade. Like, is that really a big deal?
Yeah.
In comparison to getting a different secret down?
Yeah, it just doesn't do it, does it? Like, it's not like Thijs is going to magically trade the Foxy into the 2-2, right? And then the man quick dies from Reckoning. It's just not going to happen.
Yep.
Oh. Well, maybe it's going to happen this way. I thought Thijs would just put the 2-1 in here. Okay. Just let him retain the minion.
Yeah, it's technically better for him, right? If it's about Reckoning, it does play around Reckoning a little bit better because you get some value out of the minion. Otherwise, you just... I mean, I guess you could have attacked with Foxy.
Yes,
right?
that's what I was looking at, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This allows Thijs to be just a little bit wider. Oh, Secret Passage and now Swindle in his natural hand. That's a big deal.
What's another potential Octoproc as well?
Also, he can... no, he probably won't, right? I was looking at... Because he's playing quite aggressive, whether he ever wants to, like, 10-woo the One Thief.
That's an upgrade. Probably.
Just drop another Octobot, right? You had, like you said, you have Swindle in your opening hand, so... Okay, he's just going to go 10-woo instead, sure.
It will work, right, with Luminary, if it survives.
Oh! Yeah, good question.
Well, it's a card not from your deck, right? If the One Thief
I mean...
is replayed, I mean.
Semantics? It says cards that didn't start in your deck, and that card did start in my deck, so...
No, I'm sorry. I mean the card you get from One Thief next turn.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Because Luminary's probably going to live, right? Then he gets a reduced X card that he gets on the Discover. Right. Sorry, yeah, I wasn't very clear with that. Here, though, I mean... It's you nailed it early on in the game, right? With that opening from Thijs and this opening from AyRoK. He didn't have the early hand of a doll. He didn't have the Sword of the Fallen to at least put some speed bumps in the way. I do think the Galloping could have been played earlier, which would have allowed him to at least generate a 3-4. But yeah, it's not great, is it? Right, just Protector's not a bad pickup and can be pretty annoying to deal with, but there's Thijs just has enough. He has the hero power. He has plenty of minions.
Yeah, I do think the Galloping potentially offered more on the turn when the Libram came down, just because of the threat of, an additional secret that could have been Oh My Yogg, for example. Like, Thijs wouldn't have procced the Galloping Savior that turn, then would have had to have still been thinking about Oh My Yogg when he went into the next turn when he just ripped Secret Passage, which obviously makes that turn a lot more difficult to navigate. But I think, all things considered, he's just in a rough spot here. He's going to try and clear out as best as he can, but he is rapidly running out of health, and he needs Libram of Hope to be his exact next draw here, or he is out of this game. He might be out of it right now.
Okay. So he can start with...
It's quiet. Too quiet.
Yeah, Swindle's better, right? Because then One Thief won't actually offer him anything directly. Apexis Blast, anyone?
Does deal damage on it. Shadow Step is insane here as well. Deal 3 with the Foxy Fraud, step the Foxy Fraud, replay the Foxy Fraud, play the other One Thief at a bare minimum if you don't pick up anything better off the top.
To make a wager, friend.
Or even just Swindle, right? Just dig.
Oh,
dig for...
Did have Swindle blind us there.
Yeah, dig for the Wicked Stabs, and now he has 2.
Yeah, that's game. Yeah, apologies. She just did not see the Swindle in hand.
I'll let you off, you're a bit rusty, so...
yeah. Feeling a bit under the weather today. Throat's a bit scratchy.
Look, at least just change it up a little bit. Don't copy my homework. And there's just nothing there, is there?
No.
It's just that kind of matchup.
This is not what we stood for.
AyRoK gonna do his best to defend here, takes out the field contact to just minimize the options that Thijs has, but we can see with no healing available to him, double Wicked Stab, that's gonna spell the end for AyRoK, not only in this series, Sottle, but in Grandmasters for this season.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see what it means to him. He's not even going to look. He knows. He's resigned. There's only 9 cards left in the deck between One Thief and the natural Wicked Stabs to be found here in the deck. He knows, and there is the final wave. Thijs gives the shrug. Yeah, he's going to throw the heart right back. I think that is directed directly at AyRoK himself. Because I don't think Thijs takes any great joy in this, but at the same time, he's a competitor, and as I said, he's still had things on the line in this as well. He's looking to secure that top 2 place, so he goes into the best possible position in playoffs, and he needs a finals to be able to do that, much like AyRoK needed a finals to be able to secure his relegation. But unfortunately, that now means that AyRoK is our 3rd person to be relegated alongside Swids and Zim in European Grandmasters for the season, who are unfortunately relegated off stream on Thursday. And I also now believe that spells absolute safety for Casey at this point.
Yeah, well, we will keep up with the rest of the scores as we go. But again, just it's going to be sad to see AyRoK go. As a player I've definitely enjoyed watching a lot on broadcast for a multitude of reasons, actually. But I do hope and think that he's going to keep at it, and we'll see him in Masters tours and you know, try and go for that requalification in there. But let's give you an update on what the bracket looks like so far today, as time does seem to be flying by. Sottle, quite the rarity of these quick matches here, as Thijs does beat AyRoK, and he's going to be in the lower bracket. Just giving you a quick update that the Bunny Hopper and Bly's game was delayed, hopefully till a little bit later today. So we did start in a kind of weird order here, but the bracket's getting there, Sottle. 2 more matches left today.
Yes, and to be clear, delayed on the part of Bunny Hopper as well. I think it's important.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, based on the exact matchup that we have, Bunny Hopper is feeling unwell, so obviously with how important of a matchup it is, he's been given a little bit of extra time to try and get himself in fit shape to play out that series. So we've skipped instead to the bottom there and still have 2 matchups left to go, which is that Bunny Hopper versus Bly's clash, and then we will move on to Felkane versus Warmer. And implications, you know, range from relegations to trying to hit your outside chance of playoffs to fighting for those seedings throughout those final 2 series. So I cannot wait. But I do want to give one final shout out to AyRoK. It's been a short visit to Grandmasters, but I think he will leave a legacy. I think he's had a big impact in terms of, you know, entertainment and connection with a lot of people. You know, even with, you know, the limited connection we can have by not really having interviews and then foreign language speakers and a lack of translators and all these hurdles that we do have to cross in Grandmasters. I think he's managed to get a lot of his personality across, and I think he's been a pleasure to watch and, you know, a model pro, which I love to see in Hearthstone Grandmasters.